Talent is not the reason people succeed. Luck is not the reason either. Think about that. Most people never become who they were capable of being, not because they lacked talent. They lacked the one habit that would have saved them. And by the time they noticed, it was too late to build it in time. Discipline is not punishment. It is the promise you keep when no one is watching. Keep it long enough, and it becomes who you are. Say that back to yourself. Discipline is a promise, not a punishment. Not a personality trait you were or weren't born with. A promise. And promises are made by ordinary people, every single day, in ordinary rooms, with no one clapping. How does an ordinary person become someone extraordinary? Not through a single decision. Not through a single burst of motivation that fades by Thursday. It happens through a promise repeated so many times it stops feeling like a promise and starts feeling like your identity. Discipline is not punishment. It is the promise you keep when no one is watching. Keep it long enough, and it becomes who you are. You already know this somewhere underneath the noise. You've felt it in the quiet moment after you finally finished something you'd been avoiding. That feeling wasn't relief. It was recognition. Recognition of who you actually are underneath the excuses. You've made mistakes. You've quit things you swore you'd finish. You've broken promises to yourself so many times that breaking them started to feel normal. That's not a life sentence. That's a starting line. Every person who ever changed their life broke 100 promises before they kept one. Think about a single brick. One brick sitting alone in a field means nothing. It doesn't shelter anyone. It doesn't hold up a roof. It doesn't do anything at all. But stack 10,000 of those same ordinary bricks, one on top of the next, and you get a cathedral that stands for 1,000 years. Your habits work exactly the same way. One good choice alone changes nothing. 10,000 of them, stacked in order, build something that outlasts you. Don't wish for less. Wish for more strength. That's the pivot. Not less to do. More strength to do it. The people you admire didn't get an easier life. They got stronger shoulders. One workout won't change your body. One good conversation won't fix your relationship. One disciplined choice, repeated for years, can change everything. This is where most people quit. Not because the work is too hard. Because the results are too slow. You want to see the cathedral after laying 3 bricks. It doesn't work that way. It never has. No, the truth is uncomfortable. You will do the work and see almost nothing for a long time. Then one day, without warning, you'll look back and barely recognize the person you used to be. That is the difference discipline makes. Not a dramatic before and after. A quiet, compounding shift that only becomes visible in the rearview mirror. You get to start today. Not because today is special, because today is the only day you actually have. Yesterday already spent its promises. Tomorrow hasn't arrived to keep any. Only today can hold a kept promise. Discipline is not punishment. It is the promise you keep when no one is watching. Keep it long enough, and it becomes who you are. Say it until it stops sounding like a slogan and starts sounding like a fact about your own life. Because it can be. It's waiting to be. That's the beginning, not the whole story. Just the first honest brick, episode 2. Why do some people keep their promises and others don't? It isn't willpower. Willpower runs out by mid-afternoon for everyone, no exceptions. The difference is something else entirely. Discipline is not punishment. It is the promise you keep when no one is watching. Keep it long enough, and it becomes who you are. The difference is design. The people who keep their promises stopped relying on feeling motivated. They built a life where the right choice was the easy choice, and the wrong choice took more effort than it was worth. You don't need more motivation. You need a better setup. Think about a river carving through solid rock. No single drop of water does anything to that stone. You could watch for 100 years and see no visible change. But water is patient in a way you are not. Yet, and given enough time, it cuts a canyon deep enough to hold a city. Your daily choices carve you the same way. Each one alone looks pointless. Together over years, they carve out an entirely different person. Don't wish for less. Wish for more strength. You don't need the mountain to move for you. You need to become the kind of person who shows up regardless of whether it moves. You've probably tried to change before by relying purely on emotion. You felt inspired watching a video. You felt fired up after a hard conversation. And for 3 days you were unstoppable. Then the feeling faded, and so did the behavior. That's not a personal failure. That's simply how emotion works. It's a match, not a furnace. It lights something, but it burns out fast. Discipline is different. Discipline doesn't ask you to feel ready. It asks you to act anyway. That single shift, acting without waiting for the feeling, is the entire hinge point between people who change and people who stay exactly where they are. One late night won't ruin your health. One skipped morning won't end your progress. But one disciplined evening routine, repeated for months, can quietly rebuild your entire body while you sleep fargant. Discipline, that word again. Not exciting, not viral. But it's the only word that has ever reliably built anything that lasted. Here's what nobody tells you. The moment you start acting with discipline instead of emotion, your life gets quieter, not louder. Fewer highs, fewer crashes, a steadier line, slowly climbing. Most people mistake that steadiness for boredom. It isn't boredom, it's stability. And stability is what every unstable life is secretly starving for. Discipline is not punishment. It is the promise you keep when no one is watching. Keep it long enough, and it becomes who you are. You are not behind. You are early. Early in a process that only reveals its shape after you've trusted it for a long time. Trust it anyway. Trust it especially on the days it gives you no evidence that it's working. That trust, repeated daily, is the entire skill. Not intensity, not perfection. Just trust renewed every single morning, whether you feel it or not. Episode 3. What are you actually building? Every time you keep a small promise to yourself. Not just a habit. Something bigger. You're building evidence about who you are. Discipline is not punishment. It is the promise you keep when no one is watching. Keep it long enough, and it becomes who you are. Every action you take is a vote. Not a task to check off a list. A vote for the kind of person you are becoming. Skip the workout, and you cast one vote for the person who quits when it's inconvenient. Show up anyway, and you cast one vote for the person who doesn't. No single vote decides the election. But you are voting every single day, whether you notice it or not. Think about a single seed dropped out into dry soil. Nothing happens for weeks. No sign of life, no proof it's working, nothing to show anyone who asks how it's going. Then one morning, without any dramatic announcement, a small green shoot breaks the surface. It was never doing nothing. It was building roots you couldn't see. Your discipline works the same way, underground, invisible until it isn't. Don't wish for less. Wish for more strength. You are not failing because you can't see progress. You are early in the root building stage. Everyone who has ever changed their life spent time underground before anyone saw the shoot. You've probably wondered if you're the exception. If discipline works for other people, but somehow won't work for you, that thought isn't information. It's just fear, wearing the costume of logic. Every person who ever built something lasting had that exact thought. Usually right before the breakthrough they couldn't yet see coming. One vote won't define you. One choice won't make you disciplined. But one small, honest vote, cast daily for years, eventually becomes a landslide you can't argue with. This is why identity matters more than goals. A goal says, I want to lose weight. An identity says, I am someone who trains, regardless of the number on the scale today. A goal says, I want to write a book. An identity says, I am a person who writes, whether or not today's page is any good. Identity survives bad days. Goals don't. Discipline is not punishment. It is the promise you keep when someone's watching. Keep it long enough, and it becomes who you are. That line isn't decoration. It's the mechanism. Identity is built by repetition, not by intention. You don't become disciplined by deciding to be. You become disciplined by voting for it. quietly, again and again, especially on the days no one would ever find out if you didn't. So the next time you're deciding whether to keep a small promise, remember what's actually on the ballot. Not just today's task. Your entire future identity, one vote at a time. Episode. Top 4. What happens the day you miss? Because you will miss a day, everyone does. The question was never whether you'd miss. The question is what you do the day after. Discipline is not punishment. It is the promise you keep when no one is watching. Keep it long enough, and it becomes who you are. 1 missed day is a mistake. 2 missed days is a habit. That's the line, not the missing itself. The pattern that starts to form if you let the miss repeat unchallenged. Think about a single spark landing on dry grass. 1 spark alone usually dies out on its own, harmless, forgotten by morning. But leave it unattended. Let it catch a second blade of grass, then a third, and soon you have a fire that consumes the whole field. Your slip-ups behave the same way. 1 alone rarely matters. Left unattended, it spreads into an identity you never meant to build. Don't wish for less. Wish for more strength. You don't need to never miss. You need the strength to stop the spread the moment you notice it. Here is the trap most people fall into. They miss 1 day, and instead of just returning the next day, they turn it into a referendum on their entire character. I always do this. I never follow through. I'm just not that kind of person. That single missed day gets rewritten into a life story, and the story becomes the excuse for missing again tomorrow. Refuse that story. A missed day is not a verdict. It's a data point. 1 data point never proves anything on its own. 1 missed morning doesn't erase your progress. 1 hard week doesn't undo your training. But 1 pattern of quiet quitting, repeated unchecked for months, can quietly undo years of work. Frafragant. Notice it early. That's the entire redemption mechanic. Not perfection. Early noticing. The moment you feel the first slip becoming comfortable, that's your signal to return, not to spiral. Discipline is not punishment. It is the promise you keep when no one is watching. Keep it long enough, and it becomes who you are. You are allowed to miss a day. You are not allowed to let missing become who you are without a fight. The difference between people who transform and people who stay stuck isn't the number of times they fell. It's the average time it took them to get back up. Shrink that gap. Miss a day if you must, but return the very next one like nothing happened. Because in the story that actually matters, it didn't. 1 misstep in a 1,000-step journey isn't a failure. It's just a step that happened to go sideways before the next one corrected course. Episode 5. Why does this matter more than almost anything else in your life? Because discipline isn't one skill among many. It's the skill that makes every other skill possible. Discipline is not punishment. It is the promise you keep when no one is watching. Keep it long enough, and it becomes who you are. Talent opens a door. Discipline is what walks through it every single day, long after the excitement of opening it has faded. You've met talented people who went nowhere. You've met ordinary people who became remarkable. The difference was never talent. It was who kept showing up after the applause stopped. Think about a candle burning in a dark room. It doesn't light the whole world. It doesn't need to. It only needs to light the space directly around it. Consistently, night after night. Over enough nights that one small steady flame becomes the reason an entire house never sat in darkness. Your discipline is that candle. Small, unglamorous, indispensable. Don't wish for less. Wish for more strength. You don't need to light up the whole world today. You need to keep this one flame burning steadily in your own small room. 1 study session won't make you an expert. 1 rehearsal won't make you a master. But 1 disciplined hour, repeated for a decade, can quietly turn you into someone people call gifted, when really, you were just consistent long after they stopped watching. This is uncomfortable to hear, because it removes your favorite excuse. You can't blame your starting point anymore. You can't blame the people who had more than you. You can only ask one honest question. Did I show up today? That question, asked every single day, is worth more than any advantage you were denied at birth. Discipline is not punishment. It is the promise you keep when no one is watching. Keep it long enough, and it becomes who you are. Discipline. Say it plainly. Not as a punishment you endure, as the quiet architecture behind every version of yourself you actually admire. Nobody admires the version of you that felt like it. Everybody admires the version of you that showed up anyway. That version is available to you today, not someday. Today, in this exact ordinary day, with no special circumstances required. Episode 6, one day. Someone is going to ask you how you did it, how you changed, how you became the version of yourself they're now looking at with genuine surprise. Discipline is not punishment. It is the promise you keep when no one is watching. Keep it long enough, and it becomes who you are. You won't have a dramatic story for them. There won't be one turning point moment. No single speech. No single sunrise that fixed everything. The honest answer will feel almost too small to say out loud. You'll tell them you just kept showing up. On the boring days. On the days nobody was watching. On the days it would have been so easy to skip. Think about the sunrise. It doesn't arrive with noise or announcement. There's no dramatic entrance. No crowd waiting to cheer it on. It simply rises quietly, on schedule, whether anyone bothers to watch or not. And yet that quiet, unglamorous event is the reason anything can grow at all. Your discipline works the same way. Quiet, scheduled, utterly essential, whether anyone is watching or not. Don't wish for less. Wish for more strength. You don't need an audience for this to matter. The version of you that changes everything is built entirely in the hours nobody sees. One person noticing your progress won't validate it. One compliment won't prove it was worth it. But one private decade of unseen effort, honored by no one but you, can quietly build a life other people mistake for luck. Let them mistake it for luck. You know better. You were there for every unremarkable Tuesday it actually took. Discipline is not punishment. It is the promise you keep when no one is watching. Keep it long enough, and it becomes who you are. That's the answer you'll give them, eventually, in your own words. Not a secret, not a shortcut. Just a promise, kept quietly, for longer than most people are willing to wait. And when you say it, it won't sound impressive. It will sound almost disappointing to someone hoping for a trick. That disappointment is exactly how you'll know you're telling the truth. Final episode: talent is not the reason people succeed. Luck is not the reason either. You've heard that before. Now you know why it's true. The real reason was never something you were missing. It was something you had to build. Quietly, one kept promise at a time. Discipline is not punishment. It is the promise you keep when no one is watching. Keep it long enough, and it becomes who you are. You are not the same person who started listening to this. You know something now that you didn't fully believe an hour ago. Change isn't a lightning strike. It's a brick laid today and another one tomorrow, until one day you look up and there's a structure standing where there used to be nothing. Don't wish for less. Wish for more strength. Say that to yourself the next time the easy path looks tempting. You were never meant for the easy path. You were meant for the strength it takes to walk the harder one, calmly, day after day, without needing anyone to notice. No one is going to make this promise for you. No one can keep it on your behalf. It has to be yours, made quietly right now, in whatever room you're standing in. So make it. Not to this channel, not to anyone watching. To yourself and only yourself. Promise that tomorrow. Whether you feel ready or not, you'll lay one more brick. Talent is not the reason people succeed. Discipline is. And now, so are you.